saying that when you have enlightenment, again, you're pretty much the same as you were before. But you just know
Right.
you have direct experience of self.
Today I have Filip Mihajlovic. He's the CEO of the Center for Research of Spirituality. His father, Zivrat Slavinsky, pioneered many enlightened techniques, and since 1991, he has coached thousands of people in more than 12 countries, developing signature systems like quick goals, spiritual option, precision goals achievement.
When you perceive it in that way, then for me it is quite obvious that there is no conflict between spirituality and success. But I really believe that this shouldn't be like that. That these are some tales, some remaining parts of folklore about spirituality, which perceives spirituality as being a little separated from material world. There is a really nice proverb or saying. They say, while you are looking for spiritual teacher, open 4 eyes. But when you find him, close one of your eyes. It is a good thing to be less motivated for something that is not important for you. You will not be less ambitious or less motivated if you want to be ambitious and motivated. You will be just more and more in harmony with yourself.
There's a question I hear from founders who's already won the material game. If I go deeper spiritually, would I lose my edge? Filip Mihajlovic's answer reframed this question entirely. Spirituality isn't retreat from the matrix, it's mastery of it. When you eliminate inner conflict around your goals, you don't become less ambitious. You stop bleeding energy on goals that weren't actually yours. What remains gets you full presence, your full power. Filip is the CEO of the Center for Research of Spirituality. His father, Zivrat Slavinsky, pioneered many Enlightenment techniques. And since 1991, Filip has coached thousands of people across 12 countries, developing systems to help people achieve their goals faster. Here's the distinction that landed for me in our conversation. Most people pursue goals from conflicts, past failures, something to prove, unprocessed emotional charge. This guarantees a yo-yo effect. When the pressure is high, you perform. When it stabilizes, motivation vanishes. Filip's system eliminates conflict systematically so your goals emerge from harmony rather than compensation. The result isn't less ambition. It's ambition finally aligned with who you actually are. So enjoy my conversation with Filip Mihajlovic. Welcome to Noble Warrior. My name is CK Lin. This is where I interview entrepreneurs and practitioners about how they move from finite games to infinite games to live a life of greater purpose and joy. Today I have Filip Mihajlovic. He's the CEO of the Center for Research of Spirituality. His father, Zivrat Slavinsky, pioneered many enlightened techniques, and since 1991, he has coached thousands of people in more than 12 countries, developing signature systems like quick goals, spiritual option, precision goals achievement. Welcome to Noble Warrior, Filip.
Thank you for having me here.
Let me jump into first question. What's it like to be the son of a spiritual enlightenment pioneer, Zivrat Slavinsky?
It is really nice to be my father's son. I have the benefits. I believe the most important things that I have in my life, I received from my father. Like, especially having these kind of techniques and being able to live your life exactly as you want. So basically, it is freedom that I couldn't imagine before I tried it. Like, it wasn't at the moment when I was born. So it wasn't true for my father at that moment at all. Kind of techniques that he basically experimented with from other people, other authors, and basically later developed himself are something that I really believe is most valuable thing that I have. Ability to really choose what you're going to experience, independent of things that are happening in your life, I really believe the best possible quality that you can have in your reality.
Amazing. You have it on your bio that you had experienced enlightenment since the age of 13. And that's many people's goal of experiencing samadhi and these type of enlightenment
Yeah.
experiences. So what was it like for you to experience enlightenment at such a young
Yes,
age?
my father, like I can say his probably first part, maybe not first part, but big part of his early years were focused enlightenment intensive. This is technique from Charles Bremner,
Mhm.
and it is technique in which basically he integrated communication with meditation and realized that you can experience short term enlightenment. My father was working with a group of people. I live in Serbia. At that time, it was communist country, and basically it was really frowned upon different things like spirituality and things like that. There was ideology of materialism and communism, something like that. So he had problems, authorities, not real suppression, but it was frowned upon or something like that. But he created a group of people that were working with him and that were really devoted to that spiritual path, basically spiritual path of enlightenment through that enlightenment intensive, or later he started to call it gnosis intensive.
But what was it like? How did it impact your worldview and life path, having experienced enlightenment at such a young age?
It is saying that when you have enlightenment, in the end, you're pretty much the same as you were before, but you just
Right.
know you have direct experience of self. A lot of people are thinking that they will be different when they are enlightened, but in one not so obvious way, they are different. But actually, most of the things that they are thinking that would be different are not different. They are exactly the same as they were before.
Yeah. As they say in Buddhism, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry
Yes,
water,
absolutely.
right? The mechanics may be exactly the same, but the experience of chopping wood, carrying water is different. In my personal experience,
Yeah,
it was.
absolutely. If you pay attention, it has to be some kind of difference, or that really wouldn't mean anything. But actually, it is different than most people imagine it.
Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit. Besides your father, what other teachings, philosophies, experiences most influence your personal approach?
One of the things that I would say that are really great benefits that I had from my father is basically the way in which he lives his life. His system of value was such that he was eager and hungry for finding different new things. Because of that, we, as people around him, benefited. He had so much energy in finding different things. He would go to have contacts with different groups, and he went to United States and spent, I don't know, 2 weeks working with them, and then realized, okay, this is total bullshit. And he came back, like he wanted be demoralized for the next time. And next time, like in 2 months later, she would go to Mexico and do a similar thing or something like that. And because of that,
Mm.
I can say that my authentic laziness, or basically I'm really inert. Look, I can, for me, I would probably stay with first of the systems that worked for me. And this is where I would stop. But he was going
I see.
around the world, and he was inviting different people to come to Serbia to give workshops. He was really in that area. He was amazing. And because of that, I had experiences in, I don't know, from NLP to poetry techniques or something like that. Basically, he was trying everything, and he was checking and picking valuable
Mhm.
parts from different systems. And he had great ability integrate things from different ideas,
Mm.
because amazing experience. He was practicing these things from, I don't know, something like 16 years old or something like that, and ended up with 85. And she was still doing it. He was able to really see what is valuable where, and to integrate it with totally different concepts.
So not only he's going to different places all over the world, trying to learn from other people who claim to have certain techniques that produce extraordinary results, but he's also a pioneer innovator who innovate beyond what he is exactly, right?
Absolutely.
He's able to integrate, systemize, and also innovate on top of that. That's what
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
got from what you said. Yeah. Recently, I flew all the way from United States to the Amazon jungle to meet with some of the top ayahuasca facilitators and so forth. And it's a beautiful experience. One of the realization that I had is, oh, I thought these people are especially enlightened. Everyone is living in harmony. Family is all great. They're all about giving back to mankind. And I realized they're human beings too. They have their own impulses, drives, certain bad behaviors, and so forth. So just like the
Yeah.
rest of us.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, as the son of your father, who collected systems, techniques all over the world, who pioneer, who innovate, I'm curious, what was it like? Was your father especially like Jesus
No, 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 no,
Christ?
no,
He
no,
never make mistakes, doesn't
no,
get
no, no, no.
angry, especially generous
No,
all the time,
he was
100%.
really impulsive, and sometimes he was really aggressive. When he was angry, he was really aggressive. Like all these people who were with him in that group, because they needed to have some kind of a religious group. Like it was defined as a
Mm,
religious group because it was the only way to have that kind of group and don't be too suspicious to the government. Like it seems like you're
right.
some kind of terrorist cell or something like that. I can say frankly that he was a good person, but you shouldn't expect Jesus Christ to be with even the spiritual teachers. There is really nice proverb or saying. They say, while you are looking for spiritual teacher, open four eyes, but when
Mm.
you find him, close one of your eyes. So basically, it really means that if you have a valuable teacher, that you should be aware that he will have some personal traits which are not perfect, and that you should be aware that your spiritual teacher is also human being.
Let me ask you this as a follow-up question to that, because we're both teachers, guides, right? And for me, I don't know about you, but for me, I am for sure not
Yeah, of course.
perfect. So
Yeah,
for
yeah.
anyone who's thinking, I CK is amazing. Anyways, so for you, when you say good spiritual teacher, what makes someone a good spiritual teacher in your opinion?
I can have somebody who can teach me really good technique, and he can be proficient in what he is doing. And I really appreciate that this is something that is really valuable. But I think that it could be connected to enlightenment. Once you have stable experience of self, it doesn't seem to me that it's possible to have spiritual teacher after that. I'm not quite sure. Maybe I didn't think about it too much. So I'm not quite sure that
Yeah,
my opinion is what I said. But at the
I
moment, it
see.
seems like that. Like once that you
Yeah.
are integrated as a person, then you
Mhm.
cannot have somebody to tell you what to do in your life. I
So,
can have a dentist and my dentist will work with my teeth. And you can have a person who will teach you different spiritual techniques that are amazing. But actually, I'm not quite sure that I would subscribe to having a spiritual teacher, regardless of how proficient he is in what he's doing.
so when I say spiritual teacher, I don't mean like a guru who tells you, here's what you should do with all areas of your life.
Yeah.
That's not what I meant. Spiritual teacher is very much if I want to learn how to cook, I go to a chef. I learn how to play the guitar, I go to a guitar teacher. And that's what
Yeah,
I meant. What makes someone a good. So what I'm hearing what you're saying between the line is what is something that you want to learn that they have certain proficiency in, whether it's cooking or music or letting go of your past limiting belief or whatever the case may be. That the proficiency makes that person a good quote
absolutely.
unquote
Absolutely. I
teacher.
can say that in my life, I haven't seen a lot of competence, regardless of if you're talking about spiritual coaches or plumbers. It is amazing to find somebody who is proficient and competent. I am aware of these things and I am trying to accumulate knowledge about these people. I assess in that way.
Let's segue to your teachings because part of what your main teaching is you can have alignment between the material goals as well as spirituality. So before going to the specific methodology, why don't you define what spirituality is and define what these goals are? I think that would be a good place to
So
begin.
I really believe that I perceive spirituality as, in this moment, I perceive it as path of getting more and more in harmony with yourself. And it is not something like, I don't know, these new age things like being spiritual in that way, being mystic and things like that. In most cases, I believe that spirituality is ability to get yourself more and more in harmony with yourself and with environment. When you
Mhm.
perceive it in that way, then for me, it is quite obvious that there is no conflict between spirituality and success. If you look at some stereotypical situations with people who are new agey or things like that, if you are to make a movie about new agey people, you wouldn't see them really successful or really effective in achieving different things in material world. But I really believe that this shouldn't be like that. That these are some tail, some remaining parts of folklore about spirituality, which perceives spirituality as being a little bit separated from material world. That these two things shouldn't be separated, and that if you are spiritual, if you are in harmony with yourself, you should have some tools to be able to transfer that harmony that you're having to your whole reality, to environment. And that really means that you should be able to achieve goals that you want to achieve in material world.
Got it. So let me recreate what you just said. Spirituality for you is internal harmony as well as external
Yeah. Mhm.
harmony, right? Goals would be effectiveness. You want to do something, you're effective at impacting the external world.
Absolutely.
That's what you
Absolutely. Yeah.
mean. Is
Yeah.
that correct? Okay, perfect. Okay, great. So actually on that note, I'm nerding out
Yeah.
about spirituality a
Yeah.
little bit. So from an outsider point of view, how can you gauge if someone has internal harmony? Our earlier point, you want to know if somebody was proficient at spirituality, in this case, using your definition. So from an outsider point of view, how can Philip maybe looking at CK like, oh, this is a internally harmonious person?
There are two different things here. Like one would
Yeah.
be like assessing CK as a person who is, I would say, integrated. This is totally different, or not totally, but big way different, proficient in what he's teaching. I would
Hmm.
assess your ability to teach me what that would be really easy to assess. In one session, we would see if you are able to transfer important knowledge to me or not. But being integrated, or I don't know what would be better words for that, I'm not really quick to assess people in that way because in a lot of situations you are projecting your own
Hmm.
values and experiences on other person. For me, if I'm comfortable with talking with person, if he's talking from himself and not need to create some kind of effect and things like that, this is level. This is not assessment of spirituality, but I don't know if the person is integrated. Wait, I would say integrated person, but this is also not very. I'm not quite sure how would I answer that question. Yeah,
Okay, so how can someone identify if their goal is aligned or not aligned with their true self or spirituality or purpose?
in my system, basic first questions we are using is it possible to fail? It seems like overly wide question, but actually it really shows if you are having conflicts connected to your goal or not.
Mm,
That really means that most people, before you start some kind of work with them, have doubts about achievement of their goal. That really means
hmm.
that they are really easy to give up their goals, and it is really difficult to motivate themselves. For example, if you feel that, like, for normal person, my client, beginning, I would start it is possible to fail, and you will find something like, I don't know, 7 or 8 or 9, 10 things that person would say it's possible to fail like this or it's possible to fail like that. If you just notice what is happening, that really means that person is not really totally oriented toward the goal. He internally experiences something like, yes, I would like to have that goal, but I cannot have it if this or that. I cannot have it if this happened. I cannot have it if that happened. For example, if say, okay, how can you fail? I can fail because there is a global economic crisis, or I cannot achieve
Hmm.
it because I live in poor country. So that really means that person thinks that he wants to achieve that goal. But actually, in a moment when he will be confronted with a serious barrier, and if this is serious goal, you will always have serious barrier. In a moment when he encounter first of big barriers, he will fall back to, I cannot have my goal because this or because of that. And that really means that he basically in advance set for failure, because this is how you fail. You fail by giving up your goal because some big barrier appear. And also, it's difficult to motivate yourself. It is difficult to take actions in material world or to take action that you know that you should take if you feel that in the end you will probably fail. Because if you will fail in the end, then you shouldn't invest energy in taking these actions. And this is basically wasted energy, and you shouldn't do that. And this is why people are basically sitting in same situation through whole their life without taking steps toward achievement of their goals.
So let's unpack
Yeah,
that for
yeah,
a
of
second.
course.
I agree with you. And also, there's more stuff to unpack there. So, for example, you used, hey, I want to start a business. I just use that
Yep.
as an example for our conversation. I want to start a business. I want to build a $1 billion business or $1 million business, whatever. And yes, the possibility of the economy, the possibility of my not able to acquire the skills necessary, those are actually real,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
What I'm hearing you say is have those understanding and not to say, oh, if I fail, it's because of that.
All these things like global economic crisis are basically truth. But actually, when you process them as you should, then you have them as rational information about global economic crisis. But actually, that stops feeling as something that influences my percentage for achievement of my goal, or basically my probability of achievement of my goal. When you are in optimal state, you know that these are facts that you need to have in mind when operating in material world, but they are not reasons for failure. They are not justification for failure. Or basically, the fact that there is economic crisis really doesn't influence almost at all what is happening with my project. It influences in some.
Interesting.
In most cases, this is true. But basically, what really happens with person is that he or she gives up her goal when she's confronted with some other barrier. Something happens in material world that is non-optimal reaction or feedback of material world to my actions. And because of that, I give up. But I have all of different justifications that are just waiting to make me quit my goal.
I see. Okay, so let's maybe take a really obvious, easy
Yeah.
example. Let's just say I need some water, right? I'm gonna go to my fridge to get some water. Maybe there's no water.
Okay.
Do I just stop altogether or do I drive to the supermarket and get some more water?
Yes.
It doesn't matter if the fridge has water or my leg hurts
Yes.
or maybe Philip calls me and then now I can't get my water. It doesn't stop me. I think that's what you're pointing to, right?
My situation is
Mhm.
generally a little bit different. It is different
Okay.
because you don't have big emotional conflicts or important emotional conflicts connected to if you will be able to find water or not. But for things that we are treating as goals, usually we have. And if you pay attention, like for most people or for almost everybody, when you treat something as a goal, it is usually based on previous failure. You wouldn't even treat that goal that you're treating as a goal if it haven't failed before. It is not so obvious in first moment, but actually, generally, it is like that. Like you started to treat it as a goal. If you didn't, you would say something like, okay, I would like to have money. What should I do to have a lot of money? Then you will have some ideas about having a lot of money and you will take actions in material world. If you haven't failed, you wouldn't treat it as a goal. You would just do different things that came into your mind. You modify your behavior. You will earn a lot
Right.
of money.
Right,
You
right, right.
start to treat something as a goal only in maybe 99% of situations only because you failed before. And because you have these previous failures, they are some kind of a library of things that can easily make you give up your goal. Instead of finding best possible solution for specific barrier that I encountered.
Okay. By the fact that I could declare a goal, its chances are based on some past, but past, with the past, it carries with it failures or some emotional baggages, things I'm carrying from the past. From your perspective, that actually can have someone easily identify, oh, I fail because of this. I can't do this again, versus just without any type of attachment, without any type of emotional baggages, can say, oh, okay, I'm going to get water. I'm going to try this, try that, try this, try that, going around, going through it, going behind it, all the different ways without any type of significance around it.
This was just like a side note that probably you have past experiences connected to failures if you're taking something as a goal. In most cases, yes.
I think you're right. We don't come out with a desire out of nothing typically. I didn't have money when I was young. Now I want a lot of money. So with it, there's some baggages from the past, right? Quote unquote failures, maybe not even from ourselves, maybe from our parents or whatever the case may be. Okay, so how can someone identify if their goal isn't aligned with their true self?
At the beginning, your goal probably is not totally aligned with your purpose. Or once you start eliminating inner conflicts that you have, or basically emotional problems that you have connected to that specific goal, you will have modifications in your goal and sometimes even change the whole goal. If I have a group of 30 people during today's workshop, I would expect that of these 30 people, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 will change their goal during 2 days. They will eliminate conflicts connected to that, and because of that, their goal will change. For example, this is a really exaggerated example, but if I not have perfect relationship with my father, and I want to prove to my father that I'm able $1 million, I might come to workshop with the idea, this is my goal, I want to have $1 million business in the next 6 months. Once you start eliminating conflicts connected to that whole situation, if you're using techniques as you should, you will be probably able to find that connection with your relationship with your father of that situation. And because of that, when you discharge emotional conflicts connected, your goal will change. You will probably go from earning $1 million to something like, it's better for me to have passive income for $10,000 a month instead of having a company that I will have to care about and work on that will be worth millions and things like that. Conflicts connected to this, naturally you realize that your goal, it will be connected somehow, and it will be probably in the same financial area. You will notice that this is not what I really need.
Okay, so let me actually bring a personal example to this. As you and I, we have talked about, I help people experience their ayahuasca journeys in a way that supports them to optimize their life, et cetera, right? One of the most common considerations they have is, I don't want to drink ayahuasca because it might make me less ambitious. So that's something that I hear all the time, right? Because I talk to a lot of ambitious people and they want to make an impact, they want to make money, and they want to support their kids. So it's very similar in that way. In my response to it, I'm curious to know your response, but my response, because you can take out ayahuasca and put in Filip's quick goal setting system. It's the same,
Yeah.
it's just a different mechanism, right? That's the whole purpose of growth and transformation. When you do want to change, and then if the goals are truly important for you, you're going to keep it, and then you're going to let go of things that's not important for you. But if it's not important for you to quote unquote build a $1 billion company, etc., then of course you're going to find out what's truly important for you. That's my response. I'm curious to know, how would you respond if I say, Philip, I'm concerned that doing your quick goal setting system, I'm going to be less ambitious. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, my answer is almost the same as yours. It is basically, if this is what is really important for you, it will be important for you after ayahuasca or before ayahuasca. This is exactly the same. If it is not important, that it could be less important for you and that you would be less motivated to achieve it, you should be less motivated. It is a good thing to be less motivated for something that is not important for you. This is absolutely like you will not be less ambitious or less motivated if you want to be ambitious and motivated. You will be just more and more in harmony with yourself. And because of that, you will do things that are exactly in harmony with what you want. Things will become more important and not less important after you have some spiritual transformation and you are more in harmony with yourself. Things that are important for you will become more important, not less important. So this is why I'm not accepting clients who are brought in by their parents, for example. I have, I don't know,
Well, what? Say that
like
again.
a
Clients
student,
what?
and I'm talking with the father, and he said, okay, my son has problem in school. I would like him to have such and such number of sessions. I don't accept that because you know that person, the student with these techniques, he will get more and more in harmony with himself. Maybe he will become more able to tell to his father that he doesn't really want to go to that school at all or something like that. You really don't want to have that kind of conversation with the person who is paying or something like that. So basically, I just don't accept such client.
To me, learning, coaching, transformational work needs to come from oneself. If somebody else said, hey, somebody else should do it, then it's probably not going to work. As best of a teacher and coach we are, it doesn't matter. They need to be self-motivated to say, I want to get past my barriers to achieve
Yeah.
this goal.
And if you have a person who has a wife, lover, and he comes in really not able to forget about that previous lover that I had, like you can have a session, of course, but you don't know what kind of realization he will have. He will become more in harmony with himself. But that doesn't mean that he will forget about this person and love more first person or something like that.
Yeah.
He will become more aware of his own feelings, but we don't know what the outcome of that whole process will be.
Yeah. Okay. So let's segue to a different question. Again, I'll use myself as an example. Okay. So there are many different goals that I have personally, small ones, like doing my taxes, right? It's an important thing. And versus, let's say, a bigger goal, right? I want to be a world-class podcaster
Uh-huh.
and coach, right? So what kind of goals would best suited using your goal setting system?
The best goal would be the one that you're absolutely motivated for. The bigger, the better. You will have benefits by using technique even for motivating yourself to do irrelevant things. But actually, you shouldn't treat them best possible results by working on most important goals that you have. Like the more motivated you naturally are, then you will have better results with working with such goals.
Okay, perfect. So let's keep going down that rabbit hole, right? So I do want to be a world-class podcaster. I do want to be a world-class coach. Now, for me, it's not like I don't know what there's to do, right? There are things that I know I need to do, but I don't want to do them. For example, editing the podcast. For example, making sales calls. How would your goal setting system help me?
Like there are a few things. I would say in most cases, this is lack of awareness. Basically, you're pretending that these two things are separated. They might be perceived as separate, but actually they are not. A result of a mental model that you are using. And that mental model is emotionally charged, and there are some emotional conflicts connected to that. Because of that, you are able to perceive these two things as separated. They are actually not separate. If you would imagine experience of your goal achieved, meaning, for example, me being one of 10 most important broadcasters in the world, then you would look at it as experience, not as abstract concept, but experience. If you would take experience, then if you would examine that experience, in that experience, you would have, which is a totally integral part of your experience, which you will have a really effective editing of your podcast 10 years before. Logically, you may treat them as mentally, you may treat them as separate things, but actually they are one thing. If this is a really experience of you being super successful 10 years later, that moment 10 years earlier when you are editing that podcast is integral part of that experience. This is not separate thing of these two things. Again, I would say this is a part of awareness, and because of that, you will have to have small part of willpower that you will use just for processing yourself, just starting process, because once you process yourself, it will be quite obvious that you want to add that podcast.
I see. So thank you for that. This is what I say to those that want, for example, a healthier body and they don't like working out. You got to use your body. You can just sit and watch TV and have a great health, cardiovascular, and otherwise it comes with the territory. Yeah.
Basically, you can make it easier for yourself with techniques, but actually you have to have willpower just to process yourself at least.
Beautiful. I love that. So your goal setting system isn't, hey, let me just do this technique and then money is going to fall out the sky, or your life partner is going to show up at your door knocking, or you're going to have a six pack or whatever it is that you want automatically.
If you have a system like that,
You know what? I think this is a good segue because you had made a point of there are other goal setting systems and you said yours is different. So for example, let me mention two, right? One is set my goals, have the action steps, focus on my habits, turn into daily disciplines. So you said yours is different from that. You also said yours is different from law of attraction. They're very much just pray and affirmations, visualizations, and then things happen miraculously for some reason. Say, if you don't mind, going to the difference of your system versus the traditional motivation planning and then the law of attraction type of system.
If you pay attention, like the standard coaching for standard success coaching, motivation, like setting goals, setting plan, and things like that, I believe that this is a really good approach, but actually lacking part which is really essential, and that is elimination of inner conflicts that people have. For most people, the problem is not that they don't know what they should do. If you have a student who has an exam, it is not that he doesn't know that he should study instead of going out and hanging out with his friends. He knows that he should study and not going out with his girlfriend and things like that. If you have an alcoholic, he knows that he shouldn't drink. This is not something that you need to tell him. But there are emotional parts of his being that are pushing him into direction of non-optimal behaviors. These basically non-optimal behaviors are almost compulsive. Yeah. And because of that, you really need to have technique that will be able to systematically eliminate emotional parts of your being which are pushing you into non-optimal behaviors. And this is why it is not enough. This is not enough for you to create list of actions and have to-do list and things like that, because most people are not able to complete that. This is why, on another side, if you are thinking about law of attraction, this is ridiculous because law of attraction is based on few really false premises, on a really ineffective way of transformation of person. So if having visualization or auto-suggestion as transformational tools are really ineffective. They can give some results in really specific situations when you have a person who doesn't have serious emotional conflicts, but who would become a little bit more directed toward goal because of visualization or something like that. But for 99% of people, they have more serious emotional conflicts. And because of that, this is why they are not behaving in optimal way and not getting perfect results.
Got it. So the common denominator of both goal setting approaches, let's just say, is this internal conflict, this internal barriers and significance, the charges, whatever words we give it, is that internal barrier. That's the thing that stops them, because both are effective, quote unquote, but the internal charges are preventing them from taking the action they know they should take, working out, making sales calls, etc., etc.
If you pay attention, they would be effective systems for really special or non-existent people, like for people who don't have emotional conflicts, or for people who have some kind of structure which will force them to work to-do list. That will work even if you will not enjoy it, or if you'll not be really quick, it will work in the end. If you have some kind of system that will force you to take these actions, if you have contact with your coach once a day, that will increase your accountability. Because of that, you will know that you will have contact your coach in 2 hours, and then you will have to tell him that you didn't do things from your to-do list. Then you will force yourself and you will take these actions. So basically it could work, but actually this is like you are having two people working at the same time at one go.
Yeah, got it. So let's talk about the emotional charges then. There may be certain one that's really obvious. So again, using myself as an example, right? Let's use the podcast editing as one example. I have some amount of willpower to do things I don't quote unquote do, right? I can push myself through the discomfort. And then I have also have let go of whatever limiting beliefs, thanks to ayahuasca and things like that. But the ones that's stopping me personally, again, using the podcast editing as an example, is the subtle ones. Are there techniques that you have to help me surface the subtle charges that I may not be consciously aware of?
Yes, the time using is a really one and really simple technique, but actually it is used in different levels, in different parts of situation. For example, like we would start with, is it possible to fail? Thinking about your general goal. You're thinking about your goal, is it possible to fail? Finding different conflicts that you have, eliminating them, getting more and more in harmony with yourself, feeling in the end that it is not possible to fail. 95% of people end with feeling that it's not possible to fail. But after that, you should start to create your, basically, the way in which you will achieve your goal, and work a little bit like what we were saying about to-do list and things like that. But not only then, when you are able to create how you're going to achieve your goal, basically to identify the specific way in which you will achieve your goal, to identify specific actions that you will take to do them, to achieve that goal, you also should eliminate conflicts connected to specific parts of the thing, like in between outcomes that you want to achieve and specific actions that you want to take. So basically, in a way, what you should do is process in advance situations that you will have when you will try to take actions for achievement of your goal. So what, for example, what we would do would be to, as one of the things would be for you to imagine, for example, if you have something you have for Wednesday, you have on your to-do list editing of the podcast that we recorded. If you have that, then we would do basically clearing in advance that experience for you. So if you imagine yourself taking that action on Wednesday, you will have most of problematic emotional conflict that you have connected to that. They will resurface in advance, and we will be able to eliminate them. And in that way, make it much, much less problematic for you to take that action in the future. This is one of the ideas that we can use.
All right, so let me just process all of my charges about editing the podcast as an example. Right now, I'm going to do a 6-hour session, just heroically remove all charges. Rather, what I'm hearing is chunking it down, right? So the next step is, okay, Wednesday is coming up. Maybe the morning of Wednesday, do the process to discharge the whatever limiting things that I have in the way, and going to that Wednesday sessions that's already on my calendar that would basically reduce whatever resistance that I have around editing.
In the end, you finished exactly the right place. But at the beginning, you did something that is a little bit different, like the one that is chunking up. This is a really good idea that could be added to that. This is additional technique. But like you, as a person, you have specific experiences from the past. Some of these experiences are how you feel when you are trying to edit your podcast. You have that feeling.
Mhm.
And because these experiences are not really pleasurable for you, you have some kind of resistance toward taking that action. We can process it and eliminate big parts of the emotional conflict connected to that and prepare you for doing what you need to do in advance.
Mhm.
Also, additional really good idea could be to chunk it up in really, really small chunks and define first of them that needs to be taken. And then after that, just treat whole project as project of achieving that really, really small first chunk and nothing else.
Yeah. So instead of thinking about editing a whole 3-hour podcast, it's going to be so
Yeah,
hard.
yeah.
Just think about it. Maybe the first 5 minutes was a way to make it smaller. Maybe the first 10 minutes, process that, just do it. Another 10 minutes, process.
For my task for Wednesday, 10 o'clock, is to sit in front of my computer and turn on software that I'm using. And after that, you have a right even to give up, not to do anything. You can make a plus just for sitting and turning on your computer. Because once you sit down, in 99% of situations, when you turned off your software for editing your podcast, you will not, even if you give yourself right to finish there, you won't do that. You will just continue doing editing.
Got it. Okay, great. So chunk down the actual steps
And
and
I would
then
say not only chunk down, but chunk them down to a level of zero difficulty. Like when you are defining what I'm going to do on Wednesday in such a time, you should check if this is 0 out of 10 difficult. Is it absolutely easy thing for me? Because sometimes you will see that first of the things that you will do will not be such. Like if you will say 10 minutes, I will do 10 minutes of editing, you will see that this is not 0. For most people, it is not 0 out of 10 difficulty. This is 0.5 is difficult for me. So don't make it really absolutely 0 difficulty action.
Okay, so thanks for that. Let me give that a shot. Yeah, for sure. No, this is great. Again, I'm using myself as an example because otherwise it's very easy to, yeah. You've coached thousands of people around achieving their goals in the effortless effort way, right? What are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when setting goals?
I'm not quite sure that I'm able to answer you that question because people who I'm coaching, they usually are using my system. That probably won't be perfect answer to your question, but I would say that probably why most people fail is because they are trying to achieve their goals from conflict. They are trying to
Like, okay.
function from conflict. We have strong inner parts which are trying to achieve something else at the same time.
Then
I'm
one
not
more
able
time.
to absolutely eliminate negative parts because they are authentically my parts and they are generally positive on some level. And because of that, you really cannot count on eliminating negativity or basically say, okay, I shouldn't be lazy and I shouldn't allow to suppress part of you that don't want podcast because it will not work. There are some parts of you which are authentically yours and which are valuable, and they are trying to achieve some important things. Like that part of you that is doing that is probably trying to make you free or have some really important purpose in your life. And because of that, you won't be able long term to deal with it effectively by suppressing it. You will be able to force yourself, but actually it will work. It will work a little bit, and a little bit don't work. So basically, they call it motivation by conflict. So as long as your conflict is strong enough, you will be able to motivate yourself. Okay. So for example, if I need money and because of that, I need to schedule my workshop, then if situation is bad enough, I will be able to motivate myself to do things that I need to do. But actually, as long as conflict reduces, so basically when I earn such and such amount of money, in the next period, instead of continuing to take actions that I need to take to have some kind of stable income, I will not be motivated for that. And because the way in which I'm motivating myself, that conflict is absolutely reduced and it doesn't exist in that moment. I'm feeling that everything is fine.
Mhm.
So basically, because of that, you cannot. This is like motivation by conflict. Like as long as conflict is
Mhm.
strong enough, you will be able to motivate yourself. But actually, this is not long-term solution, and it will give you results which are like that.
Okay, so if not motivated by negative thoughts, emotions, conflicts, what's a better source of fuel?
Be aware of real goal that you want to have, and that goal should be cleared of conflicts connected to that. So basically, I want to be one of 10 most important podcasters in the world. Then you should create experience for that, and see what are all the things that exist connected to that. And that, and
Okay.
then it is a little bit more complex than basic idea that you're having about what that really means.
So actually, that reminds me of a question I wanted to ask you. So again, I am a transformational coach. I agree
Yep,
with
of
you
course,
already, but let me take on the role of
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
critic as an example, right? Some modern psychologists have a school of thought that visualization, things like that, help you essentially get the payoff because then you will achieve your goal
Yeah,
already and thus reduce your motivation. And then you don't actually do the work because you have already the benefit of, oh, I have achieved this world status, podcaster status, as an example.
completely agree. They call it like structural tension. So basically, when you're setting your goal, you create structural tension. This is tension between your current state that you are experiencing and the state that you would like to experience. This is my goal achieved. And the moment when I set my
Hmm.
goal, I create that kind of tension. So if you are trying to visualize yourself in a situation in which goal is achieved, in order to preserve your structural tension, you would need to not only visualize situation that you want to achieve, but you also need to be aware of situation that you're in. So basically, not only visualize
Hmm.
situation that you want, but alternatively be aware of situation that you are in, your current state. This is what I have. This is what I would like. I forgot what the university did that experiment. That they created
Hmm.
experiment result with the students. Results of visualization of goal achieved were basically absolutely negative in material
Hmm.
world. So basically they separated students in two groups. One group was visualizing goal exam passed, and the second group didn't do anything. Basically, people who visualize felt better about their goal,
Hmm.
but results in
Hmm.
material world were worse.
Okay. So let me do a quick recap. Negative motivation is not good. Then what do we
Yes,
do?
get yourself in harmony with your plan how to achieve your goal, and you will have good
Uh-huh.
results in the end. Negative motivation. Yeah. But motivation with conflict is not good, and
Mhm.
visualization as a motivation is not perfect.
So it's not the fall of the visualization, rather, again, the conflict that's causing the reduction of motivation. That's what your point is.
I can say with small modification, your visualization would work well as motivational tool. Visualize what you want to have, experience it perfectly, experience it as it will
Mm,
be great, but always combine that with awareness of your current situation. Be aware that
mhm,
your current situation is that you don't have your goal. I
mhm,
can maybe modify it, make it even better. In one moment previously, I said something like this. I said, okay, your goal achievement experience that you will have when your goal is achieved, that experience has passed. So basically, every experience has a past. You cannot imagine experience like one moment in time without past that led to it. And
okay.
if you would be aware of what is past of your goal achievement experience, that will motivate you perfectly fine. For example, for that student who wants to pass that exam, he would visualize a moment when he is getting good grade from his professor. This is great.
Right.
But then pay attention to what happened before that. He has such and such questions, talking on that exam with the professor. Before that, he has moments 1 week before that in which he completed that part of curriculum, and then that part of curriculum, and that part of curriculum. So basically, if he is aware of that goal achievement experience as set of experiences that led to that experience, then he can visualize it like that perfectly fine. But actually, then he will be
Mhm.
aware that he needs to master that part of exam. And that will really motivate him to take actions in material world and not just enjoy feeling good because exam is passed.
I agree with you,
Proceed,
role
yeah.
of a critic. For a student who has never had a good grade before, he has no idea what it takes to get a good grade though. So he may think, oh, I just study once and that's it. But in reality, he has no data of it requires 1,000 hours of studying before you get a good grade. Or for this new entrepreneur, you may not know you need to have thousands of sales calls to achieve $1 million, as an example. So while I agree with the idea of having the goal being fulfilled already and backtrack,
Okay.
that's where the cognitive dissonance comes in, because this person has never achieved that goal before. How do you have him know the realism that it takes, the volume of hours, the sales calls, the rejections, whatever the case may be?
A situation relatively simple. It is simple because
Okay.
when you have idea about goal that you want to have, you have some idea about how you're going to achieve it. You have mental idea.
Sure.
Usually, this is bullshit.
Sure.
This is totally silly idea. For example, in free material to people, basic ideas about achievement of goal. One of the things that I'm saying is like something like, okay, 6 important rules. Sixth rule is
Uh-huh.
your first plan will not work. You should know that your
Right.
plan will not work completely for most people, for most people. Like plan how you're going to achieve your goal is basically like prototype of aircraft. Like when Boeing is making airplanes, they have software for creation, different parts, and they do that. But they don't start producing aircraft like that. They create first prototype, and then they basically let it fly for thousands of hours, and they iron out all problems that they found. This is pretty much the same situation for achievement of your goal. At the beginning, best way you can do is to imagine how I can achieve my goal, start taking these actions, knowing in advance that it will probably not work. But actually, this is the best way to find where it won't work and modify what needs to be modified. You cannot do better than the best that you can at the beginning. Best thing to do is to start taking actions, although you know that they will not produce results. They will
Got it.
give you information about failing that you need, that you cannot have
Yes.
in any other way.
Got it. I know that your academic background is mathematics. My academic background is PhD in biomedical
Okay.
engineering. So I really appreciate your taking on this experimental approach, because ultimately you're not gonna, I don't know anyone actually. Haven't spoken to people who have a goal and then first shot they
Of
just
course.
get it like that. It's a series of experiments they did, and it's minor detail adjustments, refinement along the way. As Thomas Edison have said beautifully, I didn't fail 99 times. I found 99 ways of what not to do, but then in the 100th time or
Absolutely.
X number of time, that's when I get it. That's what I'm hearing.
The really most effective people are doing exactly that. They basically, okay, they look at the goal. Like I said, okay, what do I want? I want that. How can I get there? Okay, I can do that. Actually, he starts taking that action, but he is better than the rest of us in a way that he will not give up his goal and he will not have really problematic emotions when some of my first crazy ideas don't work or something like that.
I'm speaking to the son of a spiritual teacher. So let me ask you this question, right? So people in the spiritual community, not everyone, but many, have this idea: if I just pray hard enough, if I just meditate hard enough, if I just do this processing hard enough, I'm gonna have a divine download that's gonna help me instantly achieve what I want.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. This is, I believe that this is so universal that it is funny. I really believe that divine nature of the universe different than what I am. And because of that, there is nothing that can happen that will download something into me that will make me free. from something. I need to see where I'm not free at this moment and deal with that one step at a time. And if anything will be downloaded, I would download it by myself from me. If you pay attention, I really feel that way. So this is not taking a responsibility for what is happening. Like in a way, here I am, and there is something opposite. This is God or whatever. And in my interaction with God, I am going to earn or get that perfect enlightenment or whatever. I really believe that there is nothing else but me.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I could say it, but I didn't have a father who was a spiritual.
Could be totally
Yeah,
different for other
yeah.
people. Yes, of course.
Yeah, no, this is perfect. How important it is to have a supportive environment, having coaches, mentors, peers regarding this quick goal setting system that you have.
It is really great if you had supportive environment. This is better to have and not to have, but you can even do it even if you don't have supportive environment. Again, this is a method of taking responsibility for your own situation and dealing with lack of support or whatever. Like I would always prefer to have a coach when working on something, because even if you have a really good material for working individually, words mean different things for different people. They are metaphors for experiences. And because of that, by reading things, you will always be able to interpret them in a non-perfect way. Also, may have some doubts about what material tells you to do. When you are practicing on your own, these small doubts, even if you create perfect interpretation of what was really meant by that, you will have some doubts connected to some unclear parts of material that you encountered. And because of that, they will accumulate and they will make it more and more difficult to practice on your own. The system that I created is really simple. It is something that I know that people achieve their goal by just reading it, like with material. I know that. In most cases, it would be much easier and you would need much less energy if you will be able to hear from somebody who could answer your questions when you have some doubts about should I do this or should I do that. In most cases, it will be really beneficial. I really like having good code for systems that I'm trying to master.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's not even spirituality, just for me, I like to collect data points and perspectives. So I may interpret it one way and then they may say, okay, here's the nuance that I see that you can do. So it helps me to see my blind spots.
Absolutely.
So
I would say one of the things that I have learned from books, and one of the things that I realized for myself when I'm learning something on my own, first and most important thing is that when you have doubts, make your own answer to that doubt, find your own answer, and then forget about it. So basically, you have to accept your answer as correct from that point on, even if it is absolutely wrong. So in order to be able to continue working on that, and I believe this is really important. This is not so obvious. If you don't do that, your doubts will basically accumulate one upon the other. And in the end, you will be overwhelmed by uncertainty about what you are doing.
of course,
I
said that I have a client who built a billion-dollar
cool.
business. So he's very accomplished in a material way, right? So one thing that he said that I really appreciate is that he hates being in the state of confusion. As quickly as possible, he would gather the data and then make a decision.
Yeah.
And then trust that he has the ability, the confidence to adjust along the way. So even if the decision is wrong, totally wrong, 100% wrong, it's okay because then he will have that actual data, not theoretical understanding. Should I do this? Should I do that? Because he said most of the decisions in the world are reversible. Even if he makes a totally wrong decision, he can still reverse it most of the time. So I think that illustrates your point.
I believe that there is even more important thing in there. This is absolutely 100%. I agree with that. But there is even something that is more important there that was said. And that is a thing that he said, I hate confusion. I really believe that every specific emotional conflict, every mental problem that you may have, from small anxiousness to totally schizophrenic person, they are all based
Mm,
on doubts, on simple doubts. Should I do A?
mhm.
Should I do B? In the final level, it is about confusion. So basically, there is nothing more important for your mental health, for your emotions, for your positive emotional state. There is nothing really more important than lack of confusion, or basically having clearness about your mental map, if this is in order or not in order. So I believe that everything that you might experience that is unoptimal is based on lack of clarity or confusion, that you may say. So what he says, I completely agree. I cannot agree more.
So I heard this the Olympic coach who coaches the Chinese gymnastic team. And then the question was asked of him. He said, what separates those who are truly extraordinary as a medalist versus those who just qualify? And then the response he got was, those who can sustain boredom over a long period of time, those are the type of people, that's the quality of becoming a medalist. So I'm curious, here's a question I have for you. How do we maintain motivation over a long period of time, especially when one, results are not showing, or two, when it becomes quote unquote boring? Then this results don't appear quickly.
I believe there is additional parts connected to that, like psychology schools. They believe boredom, or basically a repetitive activity, is problematic because it activates some problematic emotional conflicts inside. So basically, when you are having some repetitive activity, then that activates problematic emotional conflicts in you, because your mind is activated in something which is meaningful for you, but it is able to start reactivating cycles that are not completed yourself. And for answer to your question is, I can absolutely agree. This is something that you need to deal with. But I believe that for most goals, you will not need to deal with something like that. For most goals, you have a situation that usually changes a lot, and you have to deal with different things. For example, in that situation, with your editing of your podcasts, I would say that probably if you would process yourself dealing with it and not agreeing with it, it has to be boring.
Boring.
It has to be boring for me. Yeah, if you wouldn't agree with that, but process it every time when you have more emotional conflict connected to that, then after some time you will probably be able to produce some solution that will deal with that. I don't know, artificial intelligence, or you will find assistant who can do it, or you will find way to earn more money so you can hire assistant or something like that. So basically, as long as it is problem and you are processing yourself or getting yourself in perfect emotional state, of the ideas that can work really nice is that you should ask yourself and demand from yourself to be in perfect emotional state when you are doing it. Am I enjoying myself 100% while I'm editing my podcast? And it may seem ridiculous. Like when I was telling that to one of my clients a few months ago, he said, I was listening to Filip and I would say, okay, is he crazy? What is he talking about? But once I processed it, I realized that it is possible. So basically, one of the ideas that could work would be to start processing yourself, use different techniques that you have, and try to make yourself really enjoy it. 10 out of 10 enjoy editing your podcasts.
Okay.
It sounds ridiculous, but actually it is.
No, this is perfect, actually. So let's count on some of the things that science and my personal experience has been showing positive results, right? So things like working out, things like sleeping, things like meditation, things like how to have conflict resolution conversation with spouses and friends like that, right? So these are not exactly sexy,
Yep.
right? Type things. And then it won't result in immediate, obvious benefits. But over a long period of time, it accumulates over time, right? It's like compound interest over time. So editing is probably one of them, right? So
But actually,
how?
I'm not talking about that.
uh,
There is a difference. One thing that you are saying
okay.
is that basically, once you're able to use your discipline to go over some non-optimal reactions that you're having with different experiences or activities, then you will be able to feel good and have results. But actually, it is possible to feel absolutely perfectly fine with things that were previously boring. And not only fine, but for example, that you're processing yourself and try to process yourself with criteria. I will not stop this process until I'm enjoying myself 10 out of 10 while
Mm,
doing this. That really works. It is not like I thought he's absolutely crazy, but actually it is. What you will notice, you will have a session with that. Okay, let's imagine yourself editing on Wednesday. But we
right.
will find when we are looking at that and going deeper and deeper, we will find 3 or 4 totally different areas which are totally not connected with editing, which
Hmm.
will get you in the end in a state in which you will, if not absolutely enjoy, you would feel really good editing your podcast.
Okay. I will take
Yeah,
that
yeah,
on.
cool, cool,
I
cool. Yeah.
appreciate that. A very nuanced thing. All right. Very good. Are there examples that you can share, either in your personal life or a client's life, where using your system that's really helped them create and achieve a quote unquote impossible goal? Can you share
Yes,
with
I
us?
can say that. I don't know, person who hosted my last year, my workshops, Tony Wang, he was my client for different versions of the system. And when I created a current version of the system, he came and participated in online workshop on 2 days. His goal at that moment he was working on internet marketing or something like that. His goal on that workshop was to increase his daily income from 500 in that moment to 2000. He said,
Hmm.
maybe to have these improvements, he's having team and things like that. His goal was improve it to 2000 a day in that moment. Like in 2 weeks, he improved it to 10,000 a day. If you pay attention, if I am to make that kind of improvement in my income, I wouldn't be able to do that. His
Hmm.
situation in that moment was such that basically some improvements in what he was doing increase a little bit of awareness, little bit elimination of inner conflict. So he was able to find what he needs to do and take actions. He was able to have that kind of improvement in 2 weeks. On a workshop that I had in Moscow when I was promoting my new version of the system, it was organized by my standard organizer, and there were something like 28 people participated in that workshop. At the beginning, we have some kind of introduction. People are introducing themselves, saying what kind of experiences they're having with previous versions and things like that. We started to talk, and as we were talking, we realized that in that whole group of 28 people achieved goals that they worked on, workshopped when they participated in previously. Of course, this is not a good statistical sample. I'm a mathematician, so I can tell you, like, okay, if you pay attention, these people are people who came to second version of my workshop. So basically, they are naturally satisfied with my previous workshop. So we cannot say this is 100% of people achieve their goals with that. This is sample, but actually, I was really surprised and impressed by that. I was really surprised when that happened.
So let me ask you this. Why do you think either Tony or these
Mhm.
28 people, what makes them special? What makes them unique? What makes them someone who can achieve extraordinary results?
I wouldn't expect that on my feeling, or basically when I was checking with some of the participants, I would expect that more than 50% of people would achieve their goals on workshops that they participated in. A lot of people really achieve their goals from written material. It is really close to what is really happening in human mind. If you just look at that question, is it possible to fail? naturally, when you ask yourself such a question, everything that exists in you that is connected to possibility to fail will get activated. After that, we are doing process creates the activation of your intention toward the achievement of your goal, although that barrier exists. If barrier was global economic crisis, you are withdrawing from your goal. I cannot because of the global economic crisis. When you do this continuous process, then you end in a state in global economic crisis, but you are aware that although global economic crisis exists, you still want your goal. So basically, you recreated your intention and orientation toward achievement of your goal where there was withdrawal from your goal at the beginning. Because of that, when you complete that whole process with different elements from your reality that making you withdraw from your goal, in the end, you stay normally and absolutely oriented to your goal instead of being withdrawn from your goal. I don't know why I started to talk about that. I don't know.
No, the original question was what makes these
But maybe
people
I
extraordinary? What makes them special?
I don't really think that you need to be special in order to achieve your goal. You really need to have that kind of methodology and ability to eliminate your inner pure being that are blocking you from achievement of your goal, regardless if this is technique that I am teaching people or it is some other technique that you are practicing. But you should probably try to focus your practice on elimination of this part of you that are blocking you from achievement of your goal. And it is relatively easy to find what they are.
Okay. Beautiful. I love that. I can't wait to give it a try
Yeah,
myself.
like we can organize some kind of demonstration for you whenever you want
That would be
to.
great. Thank you. Looking forward, you've been evolving this goal setting system for many decades now. Where do you see the evolution of the system in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years?
I started to practice something that was not only work on a goal, but combining that with work on absolutely perfect emotional state for myself. I believe that it is possible to neglect some emotional conflicts with which we are so identified that we don't notice them at all. In my personal case, I was feeling that it is normal and natural, and I felt that my internal state was really perfect, and it wasn't. It was it was based on idea that everything is void and there is nothing really exciting in a world, that everything is as it is, like some kind of
Hmm.
spiritual story about something like that. But actually, when you pay more attention to that, then you notice that you should probably feel a little bit better than you are feeling, because some of the limiting beliefs that you are having, you're so identified with them that you are not noticing them as problem at all. And they are a real problem in one's reality. These things that you perceive as normal, and this is what reality is, this is normal. And most people are basically staying on certain level. They're going a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but basically they are oscillating about certain level. I would say like emotional level that you might have. Once you are able to notice these things and have some kind of methodology how you're going to identify these limiting beliefs that you are so identified with that you are not noticing them at all, then you will be able to have really unbelievable improvements, I believe. This is what I'm trying to work on now.
Amazing. So, how would you describe this perfect state of being, this internal state that you just talked about?
In this moment, I would say that practical version of that is what every specific person really perceives as the best possible experience that person can ever experience. This is what you should strive for, or something like that. And this could be a really good test or criteria with which you can check if you are at the right place and what needs to be done next on yourself. So
Mm.
I know that this
I
is
have
not answer to your question, obviously.
no, no, this is okay. Yeah, it's totally okay. You're answering that question. Another question that pop up for me would be people who listen to this podcast, my friends who I surround myself with, they have big goals they want to achieve in their life, whether it's business, whether it's family, whether it's teachings, whatever the case may
Mhm.
be. However, they are a householder. They have employee obligations, maybe they have lawsuits, maybe they have kids problems, health issues. So yes, there's a goal that they wanted to have, they know there's to do, and when they do it, they really love it, right? They're very fulfilled, but they have other obligations. So if you can offer one piece of advice to someone who wants to achieve big goals, but they find themselves losing their spiritual center because of all these other minute details that's distracting them. What would you say to that?
I would say that there are few simple ideas. That first one would be that regularity. Like it is, you will get much better results with really simple practice or process or whatever you do, but you are doing it regularly. So it is, if you can have 10 minutes process or meditation or whatever you want, but is your cup of tea, but do it regularly. This is like for spiritual practice or something like that. If you are using it for goals, use quick goals. This is really something that I can really recommend. I don't know, material is something like $37 or something like that. And you have money back guaranteed, but it really works. It is a really simple thing that works. But actually, if you are talking about these things like different things that you are having in your life, first thing would be regularity. If you are practice really simple technique, but practice it every day. His first one. Second one would be take really high goals or try to, when you are checking on yourself, what's happening with you, set impossibly high criteria to check against, because you really can have absolutely perfect state. Define what absolutely perfect state for you is, and then notice what is different in your current state compared to that perfect state. In that way, you will always be able to find things in yourself which are well hidden, because it is so easy to treat some things as given. But basically, this is normal. This is how life is. This is how reality is. This is how spiritual work is. This is what human being is, or whatever. It is so easy to treat your own beliefs, your own limiting beliefs, as reality. Actually, this is how we perceive reality. We perceive reality through our beliefs. And this is why it's so easy to believe some things needs to be like this or have to be like that and things like that. And to treat them as something that I have to endure instead of being able to work on them and resolve them.
Beautiful. So what I'm hearing, have a spiritual practice, use your quick goal system,
Yes, for goals, yeah.
and practice it regularly, and then set really high goals of having a perfect state, whatever that is for oneself.
Yes, the first one would be something that is simple, but something that you are able to practice regularly. And that will give you much better results than perfect sessions.
I got you. So what's a website they can go to find out more about Filip's life and material and wisdom?
Like the one that I created is the one that's called goalsinharmony.com.
Goalsinharmony.com. Beautiful. Filip, I want to acknowledge you for a couple of things. Thank you so much for sharing your family heritage, your passion for helping people achieve impossible goals, really diving into the nuances of what kind of goals, what is the main difference between different goal setting systems. And thank you for helping me really look at my podcast editing
Okay. So,
as a fundamental practice to become a world-class podcaster. Thank you so much for sharing wisdom here on Noble Warrior.